Okay, this is Denny Kish, and I am interviewing him because he works in the field as a counselor and he's in recovery. So, Denny, can you tell us who you are?
My name is Denny. I'm a counselor at. Hold on.
We're in the dark. Okay,
Does that work?
it
Okay.
works.
At a local MAT clinic here in Olympia. Um, and I'm also in recovery, coming up on 5 years clean.
Woo woo! That's exciting. So, Denny, with the confidentiality rules and your recovery, how do you handle when you have to deal with clients that are in the same recovery platform that you're in?
So the basic rule, the standing rule in any treatment modality that I've worked in so far has been if you see somebody in public that you work with or that you know is a client at your facility, you cannot approach them, you cannot acknowledge that you know them unless they acknowledge you. And even then, you keep it short and simple, like, hi, how are you? Okay, on with my day. If somebody is my friend, like on social media, and then I see them at the clinic as a client, I immediately remove them
Okay.
off my friends list. And it's just a matter of ethics, and it's just a matter of, you don't ever want somebody worrying that their personal information is being looked at by somebody that they know outside of treatment. So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
And then, so now that you are in a position of caring for other people, how do you maintain your own recovery? What does your own recovery look like?
So that's a hard one. For me, working in the harm reduction modality of treatment right now in my facility, but also working a program of abstinence in my personal life, I have to keep that separate. I have to keep work at work and my recovery, and I got to make sure and take time for both. A lot of mistakes that young counselors make when they first come into the field, if they're in recovery, is they allow their job to become their daily recovery, especially if you're running groups or working in a treatment facility where you're actually talking about recovery with people. It's very easy to be like, well, I already did 2 groups today based on this, this, and this, so I'm going to go ahead and let my own program slide tonight, and I'm just going to relax at home. So it's really good to keep that stuff separate, and for me, I practice that daily. I let work be work and my own recovery be my own recovery. Sometimes they overlap.
Yeah.
So sometimes you see people at meetings that, are on your client list, and if that's the case, you just, for me, I choose at those meetings to just not share, usually, and just kind of keep my own personal stuff to myself.
That makes sense. Actually, one of the things that I just read was talking about having your confidentiality, your anonymity barrier crossed when a client sees you. So it's also a protection for yourself to not share, I would think.
Well, in meetings and stuff, if you've got any amount of clean time like that's significant, you'll hear people all the time, especially newer people, say, "Oh, yeah, I know him," and they think they know you, and they think they know your story, and so you have to be really careful with what you share about in those meetings, because if you're at work and you see one of those clients walk by and they're talking with their counselor, like, "Oh yeah, well, Denny just shared the other day that he was involved in a drive-by shooting, years ago," or something like that, and I'm just saying, I'm speaking generally. I'm not admitting to anything.
Yeah, there's nothing held against you in the court of law.
But I'm just saying, a meeting is supposed to be a safe space to be able to share whatever you want. But I find that in those moments, if I see somebody from my treatment facility in a meeting, I'll just generally keep quiet. And if it's something I really need to talk about, I'll just call my sponsor.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you do any mental health counseling also? I know that.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm a substance use disorder professional trainee.
Okay.
So I am. What I tell my people is, because a lot of times, especially just even doing the ASAM assessment, you've got you touch on trauma. And it's pretty. You can get pretty extensive in the questions on there about the degree of it. Please describe it. Whatever you feel comfortable with. Tell me a little bit about that. Sometimes they'll take that as a cue to just spill their guts.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'll let them talk for the most part, but when it comes to the mental health stuff, I usually, my blanket statement is like, "Listen, man, I know this is something that you sounds like you really want to talk about. I am a chemical dependency counselor, which means I keep it surface level. I don't want to dig into something deep and open a door that I can't close."
Oh, I like that. I have to remember
so,
that.
And that seems to get I was like, and then I usually follow that with, if you still feel you need to talk about this, we can always do a referral for our mental health person to come and talk to you.
That's good.
And so it's just a matter of just recognizing, staying in your hula hoop, I guess you could say. You know,
Yeah.
like this is above and beyond my abilities, and not trying to dive into that if you're not prepared for what it's going to bring, because that can be devastating to people, bringing up trauma and not being able to handle it or work through it.
That's really important.
Hmm.
Yeah, especially I know I'm a trauma survivor, and I know you know that we both are. So we also have sensitivity to our own issues, and bringing that up too. We have to be prepared for that.
Sometimes you'll find yourself in situations where somebody will bring something up, and you have something in your personal story or experience that could really benefit them to hear, to make them feel maybe they're not alone in that moment, or to know, you know. And I get that those moments a lot. Some people, I've been told by other counselors with more time than me that I'm too open with my clients. Others say it's just fine. I say whatever works best for you, as long as you feel comfortable. You just want to be careful with telling too much, like your children's names and specifics like that, because then that makes it too personal. But like, I have pictures of my children hanging on my wall, big canvases of my kids hanging on my wall in my office, and one of those pictures of me and my son, it was the day I got out from the last time I was incarcerated. And it's a very powerful picture, because that was the day I promised that I would make a change, and I would dedicate my life to recovery and to being present for him and his sister. And so I share that with clients who talk about like, oh, I haven't used in 30 days and she won't let me see my child. I haven't, I really just want to be a good dad. And I'm like, you see that picture up there? That was the first time I'd seen my son in almost 6 years.
Yeah.
And it hits home. So I'll share stuff like that, but you really want to, it's just up to your discretion, really, how far you want to go with sharing your personal stuff.
That's really awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything last thing that you would advise new counselors walking in for like their first experience being SUD PTs?
That's heavy. This profession, we don't get into it for the money. If that's what you're into this for, you might want to rethink what you're doing. There are days where you're going to feel like you're fighting a losing battle, because it seems like we bury twice as many as the ones that we are able to save, or the ones we're able to help. Our job is to guide, not to tell people what to do. With that guidance comes failure. But every now and then you'll get that little success story, that one that says, hey man, thank you for helping me. I just got my kids back. I just got my job back. I just moved off the streets into my own apartment for the first time in my entire adult life. And that makes it all worth it. And the second thing, self-care. Self-care is absolutely important. Get yourself connected with a good facility if you're working there that will take care of you and your team. If you're not, and you're not feeling taken care of, find somewhere else, because that's been the game changer for me, was connecting with an entity that literally takes care of us and makes sure that we're doing okay, make sure that we're taking time off, gives us more than enough time off if we need it. So yeah, self-care. Leave work at work. Once you get home, be at home.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Denny. I really appreciate you taking the time. It's good.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to hit